Hello and welcome to From the Be-All End, back fresh from the international break. I'm Simon Evans. With me is Justin Connolly, Chris Bowden and Paul Woodhouse. No Greavesy with us. He's taking a well-deserved break from building his media and beer empire and having a week chilling by the beach somewhere. So we shall crack on without him. Plenty to talk about, even though it's been an international break. There's always seems to be something happening at Burnley Football Club on and off the field. So let's start off with, I think the reason why we needed a break was just to get over that transfer window, and yet we still managed to sign somebody even when the window's closed. So, Justin, it's John Egan, I believe, not Jean Egon this time, isn't it?
Yeah, he's hardly a Vincent Kompany style signing, is he? I don't know. I mean, we all thought, didn't we, when the window closed, we all thought that we'd got enough in that department to be, pretty secure. But obviously, they felt somebody with a lot of experience in this division is available. So, I'm all for it. I mean, the news about Jordan Bayer, I think we'll talk about in a bit, I think probably explains why they've reinforced so much in that position. I don't know much about him as a player. Chris will probably know more about him than I do. But yeah, I mean, why not? We always need. We said a lot last season that what we missed was experience, and he brings a bit of that, doesn't he? So I'm all for it.
Yeah, Chris, you will know him a bit. You'll have seen him plenty of times. I mean, we've done all right with Irish centre halves generally, haven't we? But what's been your impressions of him when you've catched a glimpse of him?
Well, he's exactly what we've missed, isn't he? He's leader of men. He's sort of one of those players who's gone up the hard way, hasn't he? He started at Sunderland and didn't really get much of a sniff there, and had to come through the leagues through Gillingham. He was, you look at his CV: captain at Brentford, promotion; captain at Sheffield, 2 promotions. Premier League experience. Ireland's Player of the Year. I think 3 or 4 years ago or so. So I mean, he's 30 odd international caps. It's not to be sniffed at. And if you only have to sort of read the comments of the Sheffield fans who are just wishing him nothing but the best, and just they're convinced he'll do a good job for Burnley, which is good enough for me. He's whether he forms a partnership with you wouldn't expect him to be a starter alongside Warren Lorestead, but someone who slots in as and when.
Yeah, always handy that, isn't it? I mean, Woody, is a blow, isn't it? With Bayer's injury, sounds like something's gone a bit wrong there, and it's taken a lot longer than expected. He put out an update himself on Instagram the other day, sort of outlining that. We've got Delcroix, who's a defender who we don't know anything about. We haven't had any updates on his fitness status, so probably another body, not the daftest idea.
I think it's a very canny signing, quietly away, and he's been with us for a bit, hasn't he, training? So he obviously knows what's been going on. It's not a completely fresh face. It's more a case, seems to be, that he's got himself fit and has got himself a deal on the back of it. And to be fair, as I'm sure quite a few folks will be saying, in this division, he's a very good signing with that level of experience, like Chris has just mentioned. And it's a shame about Bear. How long's he out till? Is it going to be October next year? New year. Yeah. And that's obviously a huge blow, especially considering it's on the back of his previous injury as well, isn't it? So I think this is a very, very solid signing.
Yeah, I mean, there's Ekdal as well, isn't there, on that list of centre halves? That when we look at the, what the Americans call the depth chart, you look at what options we have at centre half when the window closed, and it looked like we got a lot of central defenders. But if 3 of them are out with long terms, as I say, we don't know what's going on with Delcroix, but I presume it's a long term-ish thing. Looks like a good signing. 2 other bits of business done in the last week were signing players to new deals, and that's Josh Cullen and Luca Koleosho. The last one, a 5-year deal for Koleosho, raising a few eyebrows after there were reports of him wanting away. But Chris, what do we make of this? I mean, are these is this just tying up business, really, these new deals, or is there something else going on, you think?
Well, if they brought the lad in for around less than 3 million, but reports suggest, and if they're turning down in excess of 20 million quid for him within 12 months, having had half of that time out with a ACL, you've got to pay him his pay him his due, haven't you? I presume he signed on wages that would befit a young lad with little experience, and he's becoming a mainstay. He's one of the players now that will get you off your seat and excite the crowd. I mean, he sort of nullified a little against Blackburn after a bright start, but he's sort of the one that we're going to hang our hat on. Really, I would suggest in that wide area, and he commands more money, and it keeps him safe in terms of any sort of vultures come circling.
Yeah, Justin Cullen.
Yeah, I think probably his deal. I don't know the details of his current contract, but they're usually 3 years, aren't they? So he probably will be coming to the end of that at the end of this season. So it makes sense, to tie him down for a little bit longer. He's been a pivotal part of the team, for the last 2 years. Certainly that season in the Championship, he really proved his worth, and I expect him to do the same this season. When is he out again this weekend, or is he fit now? I don't know. I think he's still injured, maybe. He
said he's okay today, Scott Parker, didn't he, at the press conference?
He's okay. So I expect him to come. He'll be a big influence on the team again with his experience. So that's good news. I think Koleosho maybe is a little bit different, like you say, probably bumping his wages up, maybe a little bit of compensation for him not getting that move that people said that he wanted, but. If he's not happy, he's not going to sign a new deal, is he? So, I think that's both these deals are good news. Even if it is just protecting the assets, And
would it? Scott Parker today talking about some of the other players who appear to be on the sort of fringes of the squad, talking in quite positive terms about his hopes for Mike Trezor. We haven't actually done a podcast since Trezor put up his post looking very miserable, and some memes around sad man type topics when he didn't get his move to Ajax or anywhere else towards the end of the European deadline in some countries, which was a bit after hours. But now Scott Parker, as you'd expect, I suppose, talking about trying to reintegrate him into things. What do you make of that?
We're going to find out, aren't we? It's either Scott Parker. I'm going to trust Scott Parker that he's had a word, taking it at face value, and what he says is correct. And if you can get a tune out of him, then it can only be to our benefit, can't it? And if he spits his dummy out and still posts ridiculous shit on Instagram, he'll be training on his own with the rest of the cripples.
What did you make of that post? Putting that
it was a bit. There wasn't quite enough shade there for it to blur the lines. It just seemed like it was just him saying, "I'm pissed off with this." But it's one of those things that you deal with internally, and it kind of puts a little bit of a mark over you, doesn't it? It kind of winds up being the new Vegas for the fans a little bit. But if he, buckles down, does a job, and has a decent season, there's really no reason why he shouldn't. If he applies himself, then all will be forgiven, won't it?
Yeah, Chris, this is modern football, isn't it? We didn't really have to deal with this in the past too often with players not getting a move. We probably wouldn't have heard about the moves in the way that we do with all these updates from agents, proxies online, and so on, and then a social media post was the player indicating he's pissed off. Not sure how Sean Dyche would have handled that. You don't need to tell us, but do you think there's a way back for him with the fans? That's my question, because a lot of fans were pissed off seeing that post, felt it was disrespectful to the club and so on.
Yeah, you can see both sides, can't you? I mean, if the lad thought he was getting a move to Ajax and potentially a way out after a miserable 12 months, and it's fallen through, he's going to be disappointed. But you keep that to yourself, don't you? But you look at the lad who was going to Fulham, and he's ended up basically running away from his medical, because he didn't want to go. And you do wonder sometimes that he's ended up being, after it had been speculated all summer, he ended up rushing into a move on deadline day last year. We don't know what he was promised by Vincent in terms of influence and game time. I think he started 4 games or something like that. So it's gone pear-shaped for him. But you only have to look at the lads, like from our opponents at the weekend at Leeds. They've had some of their lads who had they got relegated. A few of them stayed and buckled down, didn't get promoted, but they've ended up getting moves on the back of that. But you've still got someone like Willie Nonto, who is a big talent, with Italy, seemingly endlessly linked with Everton. Nothing's materialised, and he's got his head down, and he looks like he'll graft. And if you put a shift in and you perform, and you put in stellar performances in particular, you're going to get what he wants, and what Burnley want. Burnley want a profit. He wants a elite league move. So it's in everyone's best interest. He just cracks on and gets on with it.
Yeah, Justin. I mean, you talk about if somebody doesn't want to be a Burnley player, you don't want to know about them, their history, when they leave the club, and so on and so forth. But how do you react to someone doing that when they're still a Burnley player?
I don't know. I mean, he has every right to be disappointed with the way his first season at Burnley's gone, hasn't he? I mean, we're not party particularly to the details of what's gone on behind the scenes. I've not been particularly impressed by him when he has been on the pitch, I have to say. But then again, I don't know that he's had a real fair crack of the whip. He's not had a real good go at it. So I think he's perfect. I think he's entitled to be disappointed. And as Woody says, he didn't come out explicitly and say, I'm really pissed off to have to stay in this shithole and play for these. He didn't say that, did he? And I think Burnley fans are, they're quite forgiving, provided they see a reaction. I can't remember the last time Burnley fans fell out with a player to the point where they were booing them on the pitch and didn't support them throughout a game. I don't know. I can't think of a time when that's ever happened. But so I think if he does get a chance and he does come in and he does show willing and he does try, I think they'll give him a fair crack. I don't see it as being a problem. I think we all, as everybody else has said, him. Getting a chance, buckling down. He's obviously a talented player from what he's done in the past. It's in his interest. It's in the club's interest, in the fans, and it's in everybody's interest for him to crack on and now make a go of it, at least till for the rest of this year.
Yeah, I just think he can't be as bad as how he looked last year. He can't be. There's no way he would have commanded. We might have overpaid for certain players, including him. But he can't be that as bad as we saw in those little glimpses. So it's up to him. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, Mike, I've heard that you're a bit of a regular. Burnley fans will give you a chance. If you go past a man and whip a crossover onto Lyle Foster's head and put us 1-0 up in a game, Burnley fans will be cheering your name. They will. They'll decide that you're all right. If you come on and stroll around like you did a few times last season and look like you've got absolutely no interest and can't wait to get back on Instagram, then they will start booing you and getting upset. So it's up to you, Mike, I think. And let's hope he uses common sense and gets down to it. And if he wants to move away in January or something, puts in some performances before then that we benefit from as well. Let's move on a little bit now to talking about an announcement today that was trailed the day before with a date, a suggestion of something very, very big coming up. We noticed the B logo being prominent and suspected it was perhaps a rebrand, a new badge perhaps, or who knows what kind of thing. It looked very familiar to me to what I've seen a few MLS clubs do with that date, as though this is like almost a refounding date or something like that. When I've seen MLS clubs like the Kansas City Wizards become Sporting Kansas City and so on, and I'm wondering, is this the Burnley Bulldogs we're about to see? But it turns out it's a membership scheme. One that reminds me a bit of those ones you used to be able to get from the Beano and the Dandy when you were a kid. That kind of, but it didn't cost 60 quid. Those ones. I mean, it's
get a Nasher badge with the moving eyes.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's exactly
the Venice fan club. Yeah.
And that's worth 60 quid of anybody's money.
Yeah. But it's not had the best of receptions, it's fair to say. I mean, Woody, what do you make of this long-side membership scheme?
Yes, I'm just reading it now, and if we want to be moderately serious about it, it's the idea of marketing is for any Burnley fan to look at this and say, well, where's the value? And you look at the shit on these bullet points. Yeah, I get a cap. I get a welcome letter from Scotty Parker, limited edition tote bag, my name added to the players' tunnel if you sign up before the 31st of December, an entry in a ballot for the first team training session, prize draws, etc., etc., etc. And it's like, is that it?
It's a hat.
Yes, it's a hat and a bag, and there you go. And it's one of those. In a way, it's pointless, but it's also a missed opportunity. Why can you not tie in like a Clarets Plus deal into this as well, especially for dependent on where fans are, and there's obviously a difference between a younger fan membership and an adult type membership. And there has to be some value there that ties you in rather than it just be, here's an extra 60 quid because I support Burnley. That's not good enough, especially in this day and age. And so it just seems like there's nothing really there for anybody that really jumps out and says, I've got to jump on that.
Yeah, the kids one maybe a bit more. I mean, that's 25 quid into it. You can maybe see that being a decent enough little last-minute birthday present for somebody who didn't want to spend more than 25 quid on a kid's birthday. But Justin, what do you make of the overall concept of this long-side membership?
The concept? I don't know what the point of it is. I mean, what they've done is they've split out the sort of ability to buy tickets, haven't they? Last year, if you paid for membership, you got in the queue to buy tickets like a day before the general public or whatever. In fact, so they've split that out into this new sort of premium thing that is only applied to tickets, where you can pay 150 quid and you get at the front of the queue, or you pay 25 quid and you get in when season ticket holders do. So this now is separate from that. It makes a point in the email that I got saying there's no advantages to buying tickets for this. And like you say, it's more or less the only sort of guaranteed sort of plus is that you get a hat and a bag. All the other stuff is kind of conditional on you doing something else, isn't it? You get a chance to enter a draw to go to an open training session that you can just go and peek through the fence at Gothorpe to watch. And it's not an open training session if you have to be a member to go and see it, do you? An open training session is one where people can go and watch for nothing, isn't it? Or at least that's what I thought. Yeah. An open training session, yeah. 10% off in the club shop. Well, that's what, 6 quid off a shirt. You're gonna have to buy a lot of shirts for it to be worth 60 quid, aren't you? And then the other thing is the hospitality. You get some money off hospitality if you buy it in the. Well, that's not worth anything to an ordinary fan, is it? And then the last thing is 30% off a stadium tour, but you can only use that once. That's a one-off thing. I don't know how much stadium
limited edition.
I don't know how much stadium tours are, but that again, you're going to have to go. That's not going to make it £60 worth forking out. So I just can't see what the point of it is. And they use this ridiculous, infuriating language, don't they? Get closer to the Clarets by becoming a member. And you get this special hat that you can wear at Turf Moor at games. To me, I was thinking about this. It reminds me of this thing, you know, when you can pay extra on Twitter to get a blue tick, and that marks out all the wankers.
I've got one of them.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't pay for it, did you, Simon?
I did. Yeah.
Oh no. There you go. So I'll see you on Turf Moor next week with a big B on your cap.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Though that anyone who's wearing one of them B hats, the limited edition, you can only a limited edition presumably means you can only get it through this scheme. I mean,
yeah,
if they're going to
on sale in the club shop next week, don't worry.
Do you reckon? Because otherwise, anyone wearing a B hat, you know, you spent £60 on becoming a alongside member, haven't you?
Exactly.
Chris, what do you make of it?
That's it. It's like the old Oasis announcement, isn't it? They everyone just whacks a date up, and then people get hot under the collar, don't they? And it's just another cash grab, isn't it? It's again, you look at the sort of responses to it, and people, you know, get closer to the Clarets. Well, it seems to have done the opposite. It seems to be making people feel a bit more, you know, estranged from their beloved club. It makes little sense. I say, well, you know, you get the chance to potentially go to a training session. You know, it's a draw. You know, well, what's the benefit if you don't get the opportunity to go to a training session? It's all big. Just go down to the club shop, get yourself a cap for £20 or whatever they are, and jobs are good, isn't it?
And shock horror, I've just gone through the process as you were chatting, and it's just popped up with, sorry, no memberships are available to purchase.
Oh, well, yeah.
Well, there you go.
They sold out.
They'll post it hat to the wrong address. It's a ticket department station.
Then you'll ring up to find out what's happened to your hat, and they won't answer the phone or respond to your message.
Yeah. You can't buy a hat for your son at the same time, Justin.
No. Certainly not.
But it has been suggested that we should follow suit, though, you know, and have a BO. If there's alongside membership, we should have a BO membership. And one of the ideas
to the BO end, yeah.
Get closer to the BO end. See, we could flog some T-shirts, couldn't we? We could, you know, you get an exclusive limited edition T-shirt. It was suggested that you get a personal fuck off email from Woody when you join up. What else could we offer? I mean, Greaves got a pub these days. So.
Yeah.
You mean the opportunity to potentially go to Greaves' Boozer, yeah?
Yeah.
Open session.
Enter a draw.
Yeah.
Open session. Yeah. Enter a draw to have an open session at Greaves' pub with limited edition beers, because they are limited edition, some of them. Yeah.
We could offer people to go and work a shift in there if they join. That's more like it.
To the bare necessities.
Get closer, yeah.
Spend quality time with Andrew Greaves. Yeah. Right. Well, we'll welcome any more suggestions for what kind of package we could put together. We will, you know, obviously the £60 will include our T-shirts that cost. How much do they cost, Justin?
£25. Yeah,
£25. So
bargain.
Basically, you get a £25 T-shirt, and then we'll think of 4 or 5 other opportunities.
Plastic bag, that'll do, won't it?
Yeah.
You don't want a tote bag. You want a plastic bag, right?
Handcrafted plastic bag. Yeah. Right. Any suggestions can be sent to our Twitter account, I think. Yeah.
It's blowing up as we speak.
It's blowing up. Right, on the off the field topics, I think we've all had time. We haven't done this really yet. We've talked about bits of it, but I think we've all had time now to watch all, if not all, then most of Mission to Burnley. It made its way across to the United States in a indiscreet or a discreet fashion, I should say. He hasn't appeared out yet on Peacock Television, but we've managed to have a glance at it, so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of people have watched it a few weeks back, but it's still fresh enough in their minds, I think, worth talking about. Woody, what were your impressions of season 2 of Mission to Burnley?
I think overall, it was a better documentary. It was a better structured documentary. It was obviously a soccer season, football season documentary, wasn't it? As opposed to season 1, which felt like it was trying to find its way a little bit. And this was very much a case of running through the season. I like the way that they kept interspersing it with so-called pundits, i.e. fans on forums and people ringing up going, bloody hell, and stuff like that. But I think there's, you know, when you've like watched a season in its entirety and you've done a pod, it felt a little bit disjointed. You don't quite remember the season through the eyes of the documentary necessarily, which isn't a bad thing. But from you always kind of look at, well, what's been left on the cutting room floor? And you know there's infinitely more that was probably there. So you kind of start to parse the stuff that is in there, and without wanting to place certain things that you understood may have happened in the background during the season. I think there's a lot of telling stuff with regards to some of the ALK, you know, how Vincent came across overall basically as some kind of, you know, weird Zen charlatan, some lob-sang ranker, bullshit, you know, merchant who went from basically his little Zen diatribes of we will be beyond, above, and besides, and it's we go again, etc. That all of a sudden, once you hit on the mental health issues of Lyle Foster, I thought one telling piece and I was surprised how early this actually came in the documentary. But we went to the mental health piece with Lyle Foster, and then that little interview where he kind of reaches over and says, what are we calling it nowadays? In terms of how do we address this mental health issue? So there seemed to be a lack of authenticity there. And then all of a sudden it flipped to that JBG thing, the good Monson bollocking. And all of a sudden that was when a little bell went off that, hang on a minute, there's some bullshit going on here. You know, that we're trying to portray this idea of this mental health message, but we're also we've got this dichotomy with him being a fucking psychopath, you know, and basically being a bully.
No, it's bullying. A lot of that is bullying. It
is, but also that thing where he kind of it did seem dismissive, and that's deliberate from the producers and the filmmakers to put that kind of thing in. You know, and as it went along, we kept seeing that it was just him coming out with crap, and obviously the season unfolding. I think another telling piece was the Spurs game when we went down, and he's just coming with some shit. You know, you've just gone down, and he immediately goes, "Oh well, tomorrow's another day. Don't feel too bad about it. Do whatever you're going to do." And it just went to Dara O'Shea, and there was an eye roll, and you knew then that as far as from a player perspective, they knew it was bullshit. And so that was quite telling. And also this, you know, endless life or death screaming stuff. There was also that little, I think it was maybe in the third episode where he's talking about, you know, his upbringing, his mum and dad. And he does this kind of reverse Bill Shankly where he's been banging on about it's fucking life and death and all and then all of a sudden he says, well, the way we're brought up and all that, then, you know, there's more in things that are important than football. And it's like, there's all this, and it's just nonsense. And his relationship with little Al, which was just this weird, strange reverence where they're just bullshitting each other with these strange little phrases. They've gone down, they're walking down the tunnel to the bus, and they're going, well, we go again. Yeah, we go again. And it was It was like watching Laurel and Hardy wandering off into the sunset. and it was just nonsense. And I'll let somebody else go on about the spoken text where it was almost like a spurned boyfriend, who just couldn't stop.
Oh, the voice messages about the dinner date that never happened.
There's a sausage casserole.
That was David Brent stuff, wasn't it? Like we've got £200 million worth of talent on the field, which he acknowledged he was now in trouble for.
Yeah.
We've got £200 million. Our manager's just walked out. The entire project has just collapsed, and David Brent is sat there going, "Yeah, what about this dinner date we're going to have with him tonight, though?" And his wife's not feeling so good. I found a lot of it bizarre. I think I'll pass to somebody else in a second, but I just wanted to say the contrast between the body language in the dressing room and the language that you're hearing from the coach, effing and blinding, screaming and shouting, which we're told modern coaches don't do anymore, and Company was supposed to be a modern coach. I actually don't think that many old school football managers do that sort of thing anymore. I think if they're having a go at a player, they pull them to one side usually. But the contrast between that, so I know even the rah-rah motivation stuff like, we believe, you've got to fucking believe, and all that kind of stuff. And you look at the body languages of the players sat slouched in this dressing room, showing anything but belief. But, Justin, who came out of it well and badly for you? I mean, I suspect you're going to start with badly, but, up to you.
Honestly, I'm surprised the club have allowed it to go out because I don't think anybody comes out of it particularly well. I think there's a couple of things that you both said that point really to my overall impression of it. This sort of like the dichotomy that Woody was talking about and the contrast that you were talking about. Vincent Kompany is supposed to be this sort of super zen calm. He's always talking about how we stay calm and we don't do this. And then he's losing his shit every 5 minutes. And it's just absolute madness. But that's not the only place where you've got sort of really weird contradictions. I know we've got a lot of respect for Matt Williams, but he tells that story about the cleaning lady who gets a bollocking off Kompany for being negative about team selection. He overhears some, why is he still playing James Trafford, and gives him a right bollocking. And Matt Williams is like, we don't want any of that. We want positivity in the building. You can talk about that with your mates in the pub. And then you get Lee Mooney on, who's the chief data scientist, who not just once, but several times explains how shit Burnley's players are and how they're nowhere near as good as any of the other players in any of the other teams in the division. And, we've got, what did he say? We've got a Formula 2 car and we're trying to win a Formula 1 race. Well, there's negativity in that I don't want to hear. The whole thing just strikes me. I wish I'd seen it in real time when all this stuff was happening, because there's no way I would have held out any hope that we would remain in the Premier League, having seen behind the scenes like that. But I mean, I think Company's team talks were just bizarre. The shouting and ranting and raving. There's one before the Everton game where he actually tells all the players that they're nowhere near as talented as anybody in the Everton side. So they're going to have to work. I mean, what do you do? What is what is he doing? I mean, these lads are supposed to then go out and go, well, at least our boss believes in us, It's just mad, It's just, and he just gets
a brick wall for that guy who thinks I'm shit.
Yeah, I mean, you get to the end of it and you sort of think, well, no wonder it ended like it did, and no wonder it's all falling apart, because almost everybody in that world, apart from Nathan Redmond, who seems to know what's going on and seems to be very angry about it, nobody in that world is anywhere in touch with a reality on the pitch that I see when I go and watch the team.
Yeah, great.
It's been. Yeah, see, I watched it all in one block when it came out, and fell just short of putting my foot through the telly. Remembered that it's an expensive one. So, but it's like I say, I had people who were sort of eavesdropping on me while I was watching it, and just sort of couldn't believe, like I say, the language. I mean, I mean, I know what I'm like on the shop floor. I'm a horror for bad language and stuff like that. But it was, yeah, just I said from someone who's just sort of like very, very intellectual sort of football character to be just basically saying that. Well, just what you hear in a Sunday league dressing room, isn't it? We're fucking better than these. Just go out and fucking stick it to them. That's it just. Yeah, very strange, very strange. And the Everton thing, I mean, you're thinking about it, in the actual situation that we were in, that Everton squad might have cost whatever it had cost, £500 million over the time. But it wasn't playing anywhere near like an $500 million. We were very much on a level playing field in terms of going toe to toe with that lot at the time. Even though it turned into like men against boys on the field, but it wasn't like you're not minnows going into a game like that. And like I say, if it was Luton Town and we had the sort of the recruitment guys sort of saying, well, we're going into this, let's say, with a Formula 2 car, up against Lewis Hamilton, then fine. But Burnley have been in the Premier League 7 out of 8 seasons. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Burnley fans of this generation almost half expect us to be in the Premier League now. It's for the past decade. We've largely been ever present in it. So don't give me that sort of shtick either. It was just all sort of really, really toe-curlingly cringeworthy, and it was very, very Brent, very, very Brent-like, and I can't believe I made it through it, to be honest. But...
Yeah, I know. I mean, it felt by the end I'd spent like an hour being bollocked by Vincent Kompany, really. He was just relentless. That was the only thing. There was nothing relentless on the field, but that stuff. The one person I thought who was a surprise positive in it was from ALK's group, Dave Checkett, who suddenly in the middle of all this bullshit, he suddenly stands up and goes, "You've got this all wrong, haven't you? You've signed all these young kids, and like you've got no leaders there. And who's your 5 guys?" And like just basically said, you're signing players who know they're going to be leaving. And this is a guy who's run sports teams in the NBA and other sports and MLS and stuff. He's actually probably the only one in ALK who's got a background in sports as opposed to, being an estate agent or a banker. And like I thought it just cut through it all for like 2 minutes. For people who know a bit about what's been going on at Turf Moor, who follow it like fans do, this guy was just like, yeah, that's exactly like it. He's an American, he's an outsider, he's not as involved in it as probably some of the other ones there are, and he can see exactly what the problem is. I'd have liked to have heard what JJ Watt thought about it all. He sort of appears in the background of a few things, but they never managed to get him on camera with having a word at any stage, I don't think.
No.
I don't think there was any.
It's probably for the best, to be fair. But another thing that particularly boiled my piss, now I'm thinking about it, is there was also a discussion, because there was a lot of reverence, especially from Little Al, to Vincent and the management and this so-called project that he obviously didn't understand. But when he was speaking to anybody with regards to staff, I thought the fan advisory board came across quite well. They asked the right questions, but weren't able to get the right answers. But there was another telling piece where they were having a staff meeting, and somebody from the staff just asked, like a normal staff member would, what happens if we go down and get relegated? What's going to happen to our jobs? And that little shit said, we don't want you thinking like that. We want you to believe there's no chance of us going down. We need to believe that we will be staying up. I don't want to fucking hear that as a cleaner from my boss that, let's not think about that right now. At least have the decency to treat the people who are actually, doing that shit with a little bit of decency, over and above the fawning and the reverence and the giggling towards our Vincent. And that did annoy me. Sorry.
There was a celebrity appearance in there as well from Jordan North.
He was brilliant, wasn't he?
We'd have to just evaluate Russell Ball's contribution to Mission to Burnley a little bit, I think, because the drum episode was something we did discuss on this podcast once or twice, I think.
Yeah.
Justin, I mean, how do you think Mr. Ball came over and through that episode?
Well, he seems to be laying the blame for that squarely at the door of Alan Pace, doesn't he? Oh, it's a non-negotiable for Alan. He definitely wants the drum. The drum is definitely happening. Of course, it didn't happen, so it wasn't that non-negotiable, was it? But I love Jordan North heading. He had his head in his hands, didn't he? On that video call.
Zoom call.
Yeah. And I just think people think it'll be a bit naff. Yeah, and it's right. I mean, I don't know. Russell Ball, like I said, none of them really come out of it with any credit, and he seems like as big a clown as the rest of them. Doesn't he? I don't. I think that he's in charge of fan engagement, isn't he? So presumably he's sort of had a hand in the drum thing. He's had a hand in this new membership scheme. He's had a hand in all, the flag debacle. This thing where they were going to get flags in, and I don't think I've ever seen one flag apart from the ones that they pay people to wave on the pitch. And it's all been like a facepalm thing. Every time they come out with something new that is supposed to engage the fans, it does the exact opposite. So I'm afraid he's another one that doesn't come out of it with, an enormous amount of credit. Most of the things that he does in it seem like almost like jokes, really. Almost like he's trying to annoy people, annoy the fans in a strange kind of way. I'm sure he's not. I'm sure he's doing his level best to try and find
he's coming up with ideas all the time.
He's coming up with ideas to engage the fans, but I just don't think. I don't know. They don't seem to understand it. There's a lot of talk of this in the game. Oh, we've had people say, the atmosphere on the turf. Oh, it's all a bit flat this season. You've lost 5 fucking games in a row on the first 5 games of the season at home. What do you expect? We said this at the time, didn't we? If you keep losing, if you keep conceding stupid goals at home, and then they're going on about people leaving early. Well, what do you expect? We paid good money to see a performance from a side and it's not getting any better. It doesn't get any better. It's just. It's a bit clueless, isn't it?
I thought it was quite revealing that he was concerned for the safety of the drummer if they brought it in, because he'd seen some comments from fans about what they'd do to the drum.
Was it my imagination, or do I remember him actually unboxing a drum?
Oh, he did unbox.
There is an unboxing.
Yeah. He got the drum.
They bought the drums off. What a waste of money that was.
Yeah,
they should have done one of them. You could have done one of them YouTube unboxing videos, couldn't you? And promoted that as well.
The drum reveal.
Yeah,
that could be part of the membership scheme, couldn't it? You get a chance to play the drum at Turf Moor if you sign up.
Yeah, bang the drum.
That'd be worth 60 quid.
But they've had such a good week again on the field as such. With the two contracts, 2 key contracts. And a very astute free signing, fantastic. And then you get this membership thing. It's just like 2 steps forward, 1 step back all the time.
Totally unnecessary on goal, isn't it? Really, unfortunately.
And that's what the fan advisory board's for, to run these ideas past them. And I'm sure, those people, like Woody said, the bit that I saw with them involved, they were asking the right questions and they were not getting very far, but. I think that's indicative of part of the problem, isn't it? They're so sure that they're right that the fan advisory board can say, "Don't do this. Whatever you do, don't do this." But they'll go, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." But
that's happening across the board, isn't it? If you look at the Aston Villa Champions League prices,
yes,
furore. I mean, I've sort of seen people on the Villa fan advisory board just resign basically because they've raised the questions and they've met silence, met a brick wall, and this is it. This is what it's going to be, and there's no point being on it. If you can't have any sort of influence or any sort of any say, it raises the point of what is the point? Yeah.
I think this is a serious problem with the owners of the club at the moment, is that they keep getting a lot of things wrong, don't they? And they keep getting their fingers burnt, either in reaction from fans or putting all their eggs in one basket with Vincent Kompany, and then he walks off when clearly there's Alan Pace was not expecting that to happen. These things keep going wrong. They come up with initiatives that don't work. They get they're having bad relations with lots of different fans. It's not just us whinging, is it? There's people who are like, been pretty positive about this ownership group, far more positive than we have, are turning around going, this membership scheme's a bit of a gimmick. We're seeing that from people far more pro ALK than we are. And yet they never seem to learn from it. They never seem to stop and go, hold on a minute, maybe we need to bring somebody in who's got a bit of experience of running a football club, or maybe, being a member of a particular group that's supportive of Alan Pace and his family isn't the number one priority for a job qualification. We should be bringing in some serious experts here to help us in certain areas. And they never seem to draw that conclusion. That's my worry.
No, it's when Russell Ball interviews Jordan North, he seems like he does sort of take the piss out of Alan Pace a little bit in that section, which is a bit strange, but they don't want to hear what he's got to say. His response to the drum idea is, don't do that. That'd be naff. And he goes, well, we're going to do it anyway.
It's a white call Jordan North up and ask him what he thinks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the attitude all the time, isn't it? They're looking for confirmation that their ideas are good. And when they don't get it, they just ignore it, which, like you said, what's the point?
I do think there's bits come up in it, and Matt Williams was guilty of it in one. Talking about everything that's wrong with this club will get worse, as the results go on and this kind of stuff. I do think they're a bit soft-skinned on the one hand in terms of criticism, but they also seem to sort of fear the worst with Burnley fans. They seem to have got themselves into that place where they think like, oh, they're all against progress and against doing things a different way, which is not true at all. Burnley fans were, when they took over Burnley fans were ready for loads of new things. They were. If you cast your mind back to how stale it had become under Garlic and everything, people were like, we want some investments. We want the ground tightening up a bit. We want some new things happening. And it's not people not wanting things to be done in a modern way, or even not wanting to take risks. It's them getting it wrong, constantly getting stuff wrong. Anyway, what we can't get wrong is Leeds United away on Saturday. There's a link for you. Elland Road, Leeds United. To me, it's not a derby, but it always feels a bit like one, Chris.
Oh, it's just, without sort of blowing smoke up Leeds, it's the most hostile place in football, I find. I mean, maybe it's because whenever I've sat there, you if you're in a press seat, you are literally right in the middle of the Leeds fans, and they are foaming at the mouth. It is, the slightest anything, they get a throw in that goes against you, and they're on you. It's really, which is all the more pleasing that the amount of times that I've seen Burnley there, that they've silenced them, and they've come out on the right end of things, and. You're going into that. Remember I think it was the last time we went there when we lost 3-1 around, was it the turn of the year when the Cornet scored that magnificent free kick, and there was all sorts of stuff raining down on Burnley players because they had the temerity to celebrate. It was like, how dare you? Matt Lowton got it with something and doing lobbing stuff at Cornet, and it was a horrible, horrible, horrible day because they could have had any number on the break in the end, Leeds. It was just one of those days where you thought we are absolutely tied on to go down, and this lot are supposedly as bad as us. But it's going to be they're another unbeaten side. They've had a decent start. I think he looked at the opening day, like to draw 3 apiece at home to a promoted side. I think it was a bit of a sticky result. Around the time when they were losing a lot of big players, like like what ultimately happened to us. But you look at the last two results, beating Wednesday and Hull, and they've got a nice mix as well. They've got sort of good championship experience and bright young talent as well. And I think if Burnley can come away unscathed, having avoided defeat, I think it'll be an outstanding result, to be honest.
What did you feel like that the team after the Rovers game is now going to be ready, having worked together a bit during the international break, ready for a challenge like this to go and get a decent result there?
I think we'll be more ready. And I think that 2 weeks may stand us in very good stead. And I don't think we've had quite as many go away on international duty as maybe Leeds have. And they've got a couple of injuries. But you'd like to think, I'm sincerely hoping certain things have gelled, because there looked to be signs of promise. But it's one of those, isn't it? When does that come to fruition? Is it something that's going to happen soon, or is it a few games further along? And so I've genuinely no idea. Like Chris said, it's a horrible place to go, and they started the season extremely weirdly. We, did not drew the first two or something, and their fans were going absolutely apeshit. But obviously, as a club, they're very similar to us in terms of this weird transition of coming down overspent, arguably, having to jettison a lot of their players, and they've had a similar kind of turmoil. So we kind of very similar in that regard, and they're the only two managers who've gone up with out of the Championship with two different clubs, aren't they? So it's a nice match, is this? And if we do get something out of it, I think it'd be a very good result.
Chris, do you think that's going to be Scotty Parker's mentality going into this? If you were inside his head, do you think he'd be thinking, let's just go there and get a solid result at Leeds United? We've got a new team, we've had a lot of changes, or do you think his ambitions will be bigger than that?
I think there's obviously more of a level of pragmatism to him, and whether he's seen any sort of weaknesses as he did at Luton, and hopefully prey on those. But I think he'll look to go out and sort of command the midfield area, try and control the game from there. And he very promising, as you say. The signs in the Blackburn game, Hannibal and Laurent Brownhill, obviously you've Cullen to potentially come into that mix. We have the ability to compete with anyone in that sort of area. It's just if we can sort of get that creative sort of juice flowing again. Get more out of Koleosho, and obviously the cross from Anthony. The glorious piece of football, but they couldn't quite replicate it through the remainder of the game against Blackburn. But if they can produce that, I'd say they'd only had maybe one training session together, that group, that weekend. It's promising in that front.
Yeah, I mean, the counter-attack in the first couple of games seemed to be what Parker was building. Justin, what are you hoping, expecting? Final word for you on Leeds United?
Well, I think it's a good test, isn't it? It's a good... Early on in the season, both sides got high expectations for the season. We're both sort of up there as favourites to do well. We've seen... a massive turnover of players. We've shown decent size against Blackburn Rovers, and now this is a good test to see how far we are along, how good we actually are. I think that pragmatism from Parker is a bit more of a horses for courses thing. I think he will try and beat Leeds. But I think he's not necessarily going to do it in the same way that he'll try to beat other sides. I think he's quite clever like that, and I'm looking forward to it. I think they've obviously got years and years and years and years and years more championship experience than our club has got, but they're a good side. They've made a good solid start. And I think it's. I think it's an opportunity to make a bit of a statement and lay a marker down for the season and say, look, this is what we're about. Anybody who wants to try and take us on has got to deal with this And these 2 weeks are going to be key. It's going to be really interesting to see how the relationships that we talked about last week have developed, and how he sets up the team. I think it'll be different to what we've seen before, but I don't see him settling for a solid result. I think we'll go out and try and win this game.
Excellent. Well, what a fine note to end upon. I think it's no questions of Formula 1 cars up against Formula 2 cars on Saturday. All in pole position. Thanks very much for joining us. We will have a great weekend. Hopefully we'll be back to talk about a Burnley victory. Have a good one. Follow us on social media. Do subscribe. Don't forget to tell other people about it. There's still a few people haven't heard of us, so tell your mates. Do subscribe. Follow us on Twitter @BHole Podcast, and up the Clarets.